Want to integrate generative fill in your video using the 3D camera tracker in After Effects? Let's dive into it. So I got some comments on the channel asking to do generative fill for video using a drone shot. So while this isn't the best way to use generative fill for your videos, I'll show you how I would go about doing it. So the problem with using generative fill for drone shots and gimbal shots is that it's inserting a 2D element into a 3D video. So the parallax and depth most likely won't be there, making it look a bit off. But in certain cases, it does work. So in this video, I'll show you in which case how to make it work. First, I'll jump into the middle of my comp so I get higher resolution on my still frame. Right here is good. And I'll jump to Composition, Save Frame As, Photoshop Layers. So now jumping to Photoshop Beta, I'll use the Marquee tool to select a portion of the rock formation, and I'll click Generative Fill. And I'll type in a prompt. I'll type in apartment building. Click Generate. Now this is sort of what I'm going for. I'll select option 1. And here, if I isolate this Gen Fill layer, you'll see that it created surrounding rocks to blend in. But I'm actually going to remove those, or most of those, and keep it with just the building. So to do this, I'll select the mask, and I'll hit Delete. And I'll rasterize this layer. Now I'll hit Select Subject, and let me isolate this again. And I'll just clean up this selection a bit. And I'll go to Expand, and I'll expand my border by 5 pixels. And I'll feather it by 5 pixels. And I'll select Inverse, and I'll hit Delete. Okay, so that works. Now I'll isolate the layers again, and I'll save. Now jumping back to After Effects where we imported our PSD, I'll drag it right into that same comp, into that same frame that I exported. So now that looks perfect. Now comes the fun part. So we'll select our video clip and select Track and Stabilize, Track Camera, and I'll speed this up for your viewing pleasure. If you're finding this video helpful, hit that like button so we can spread to more post-production people like you. All right, so now we have all of our tracking points. And I'll select the one right in the middle here, Create New Solid. Now I'll duplicate my apartment building layer, and I'll make the top one a 3D layer, and I'll parent it to the solid by pick whipping and holding Shift. And now you can see the 3D layer kind of jumps around in space. But let's fix that by adjusting the parameters and using the 2D layer on the bottom as a guide. So right now I'm just adjusting the parameters here, and I'll speed this up for your viewing pleasure. Okay, so that looks good. Let's take a look at our solid and make sure that it lines up in Z space. Okay, so you can see there that it's kind of intersecting it with it, which is good. Okay, let's preview it. All right, so that looks pretty believable as the drone flies by. Now this works because the face of the landform is pretty much in a 2D space, so you're not going to get a lot of depth in that shot. Obviously the rocks add a little bit of depth, but in a drone shot like that, you're not going to see too much. But look what happens when we try to add another 3D object, like another landform here. Okay, so this is just previously generated. I tracked it the same way and I applied the track to it. And yeah, to the naked eye, it looks okay. But take a closer look. Watch the ground underneath the Gen Fill image. You see the ground moving slightly? That's the depth that we can achieve with 2D images. So until Adobe comes out with a 3D generative fill, then we're stuck using the 2D and working around its capabilities. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. Hope this video helped your videos in the future. See you next time. If you want to see some of my other generative fill videos, check them out.